From the outside, it seems cold, unforgiving, vague, irrelevant, and boring. Philosophy, the word, it evokes a feeling of apprehension and a little intrigue. In this modern world of information and technology, humanity is constantly being bombarded by various different signals, competing for our attention. And we must learn to ask the right questions, using critical thinking and philosophy. What it comes down to is the origins of the ancient Greek words philo, meaning to love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. Therefore, fundamentally, stripped down, philosophy means to love wisdom, or the love of wisdom.
The largest organized collection of human knowledge that the world has ever known is Wikipedia, the English version of which you have 5.2 million different articles giving a broad overview of particular topics. Now, in these Wikipedia articles, you often have hyperlinks, that is, links to other articles. The hyperlinks are a way which bind the articles together. You click one hyperlink and it brings you to another related article. Now, if you go into any given article on Wikipedia and you click the first hyperlink, and then on the next article that you get to, you click the next first hyperlink, and so on, 97% of the time, you will arrive at the Wikipedia page for philosophy. Philosophy is central to everything. You have to click this particular thing.
They're there to remind you you're fighting for it.
The radio station that I listen to, it's a different kind of music.
There are new way to live life meaningfully, to imbue life with meaning when it has none. You know what I mean?
People ask what's philosophy, what's religion. Actually, philosophy is without application. It's a mental speculation. It's not intelligence. Intelligence means to behave. You behave accordingly. It's not like you think all the time. We have the body. It has to act. You either act in a material way or spiritual way. So it's up to you. Hare Krishna.
Philosophy to me is the way we all interact together and sort of unspoken laws around our morals. Yeah. That kind of glue that holds everything together. I can't really put my finger on it, but yeah, that's how I see it.
Philosophy is kind of that bridge between you being a person and trying to be objective about your reality when you're so trapped inside of your own subjective nature. You know, you have to try to see things from outside of yourself to be more empathetic or more creative, and that's, to me, would be the most useful part of philosophy, being able to be like, let's just talk about an idea as an idea rather than it being like, this is what I believe and this is what you should believe. It's more like, let's discuss what it means, that what this idea actually means and how it works and what we can do to take it other places.
No one ever really sits down and says to themselves, this is why I think this, and this is why I think this, and well, what bias am I, being influenced by here, and that sort of thing. And I feel like in philosophy, especially in the kind of group mentality, which is what university is, you have to really start questioning your own biases. You have to start thinking, well, why do I believe that? Why have I always held these ideals so dear?
I think there's a general perception around philosophy that it kind of helps us to make sense of the world and our existence. But I would kind of argue that it's stories and narratives that help us make sense of the world, and that philosophy is probably a little bit more abstract.
Realizing that you are your ego and that you are a subjective, living in a subjective reality, like coming to that conclusion I think is the first step to changing anything, because otherwise you're living in a world where you think everything that you think is right, and then there's no dialogue there. Yeah, you have to have that first initial ego death experience where you become more inquisitive and like critical of your thinking, and then after that take in as many views as possible, like go out there, find all the different things, read some philosophers, whatever, any kind of different perspective is good, and then after that it comes to that stage where you decide for yourself what you think is the right thing. And of course there's no objective truth, so you can't really know for certain, but you have to just decide based on how you feel, having learned all this knowledge, what is important to you.
It's kind of a scary word. It's a big word. Like philosophy, it's kind of, if you see like an overarching thing, philosophy is everything. Like philosophy is it's huge. When you start studying into the world and studying into theories which make people understand the world, it makes the world more confusing in itself. And you come up with more questions, and a couch is no longer a couch. It's sort of just like a reason of being. Why'd you sit down rather than just sitting down because you feel like you're tired? It's just like, well, why are you tired? What is the meaning of sitting down? I feel it just brings more questions.
I'm not like an academic person, so I don't read like academic philosophy, but when you get in those really deep conversations with your friend about why we are the way we are or what everything means, for me philosophy is very collaborative but also kind of like self-indulgent as well, so it's like a complete contradiction. Oh my god, see? Like nothing is everything and everything is nothing. Like our minds and our actions like mimic nature, and like we can learn so much from nature. The ocean allows you to be wild, like you can just, it just goes nuts. Like there's no, and like why do we have to suppress that nature within ourselves? Like sometimes we're calm and sometimes we're like out of control, and that's cool. Like trees are patient because they just fucking chill out all the time, and like we can learn so much from that as well.
That's the philosophy. It's this sprout which goes under the ground and it creates this long root, but off that root there's all these like multitudes of little roots, and I think that's really cool that because it relates to life so much. We kind of all start off in the same place and end up in the same place, I guess, but we can take all these different paths, and we're all on the same journey, the same line, but we all go on our own little journeys, and I think that's really cool. And that kind of relates to the concept of Sonder, which is like realising we all come from different walks of life, but we exist as one entity. I think that without philosophies or people kind of having their own, or thinking about life in their own way and analysing like the nature of their existence, like life would just be so boring and meaningless, and there wouldn't be any point living it.
I think its function is to make better decisions for us as humans, just to move us forward as a society.
Philosophy is the human mind interpreting knowledge and interpreting things around them into kind of ideas and trying to understand those ideas.
I suppose to me philosophy means a deeper study of how we think and how we work.
You're going to act out of fear or out of love. I think at its core that's what it comes down to. There's this initial split in the road that you can take. So if you're intellectualizing what life is and what's right and what's wrong and etc., hopefully you can get closer to an experiential understanding of what life is like, and the intellectual process is just kind of an avenue through which you can pursue that experiential knowledge, which is really kind of where the real truth of things is, I think. Academic sense, there's some value in the idea of everybody considering philosophical concepts, because hopefully that would lead a lot more people towards the ability to have a happy and content life.
As a theoretical framework, I think it really helps us to understand what is going on in the world, And I think sometimes, especially in these times when there's, certain types of crisis and things that not looking too good, I think philosophy can give us an answer to some of these things, or at least try to explain some really complex things, why certain things might be going a certain direction. So, if I'm trying to internalize a really complex situation in my head, I think philosophy can give me an answer to that, and philosophy can be a vehicle for me to hopefully create some positive change.
Suicide, whether life is worth living, because if the answer is no, or you don't have an answer, then all the questions about the categories of mind, ethics, morality, all this stuff doesn't really matter if you can't answer the most basic question of existing. And that might seem depressing or kind of just stupid and pointless, but to ask or try and answer, but that's the whole point of philosophy, to ask the most simple questions that we don't even think about and take for granted.
I think it's critical in just creating better people, to be honest. I think that if you take the time to at least have somewhat of a more philosophical outlook on things, it kind of puts things in perspective, and especially in a kind of a world where we have such high levels of consumption and everything's so immediate, and the rise of the internet and everything. I think kind of taking a step back and just thinking about things can be beneficial to kind of who we are as people.
Okay, the thing that sums it up for me, I think, is the fact that someone who hasn't been formally trained in philosophy but knows a little bit about it, the fact that I feel uneasy talking about philosophy in a recorded sense, I think for me shines a light on where it is in society today, that I should feel a little bit uneasy about talking about it, because it's something that is kind of owned by a certain faction.